Good morning.
Good morning. This is Chair French convening the regularly scheduled business meeting of the Kansas Corporation Commission for August 10th, 2021, and it is 10 a.m. and I'm joined by my colleagues, Commissioner Dwight Keene and Commissioner Susan Duffy. On today's agenda, we have 21 consent agenda items and 2 noticed items. We will begin first with our consent agenda. And I will ask first if either commissioner has questions about the consent agenda, beginning with Commissioner Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning. I have no questions.
Commissioner Keene.
None for me either. I would move approval of the consent agenda.
I second Commissioner Keene's motion.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, those in favor, please vote aye.
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 The motion approved. Aye, the motion is approved. We now move to our 2 noticed items. Our first noticed item is in docket number 22 TRAM 012 PEN. And this is in the matter of the investigation of Carlos Marsal, DBA Marsal Trucking LLC, Wichita, Kansas, regarding the violations of the motor carrier safety statutes, rules, and regulations, and the Commission's authority to impose penalties, sanctions, and/or the revocation of motor carrier authority. And this is a proposed penalty order, and our presenter is Mr. Hassan Latif. Good morning, Hassan.
Good morning, Commissioners. The penalty order before you is the result of an investigation of Marsal Trucking, a common carrier that hauls grain, feed, hay, and other farm products operating out of Wichita, Kansas. The investigation took place as a result of a fatality accident the carrier was involved in. During the investigation, special investigators Penny Fryback and Erica Pargas found several violations, and the order before you assesses penalties for 5 of those violations, which are enshrined in our penalty matrix, resulting in $8,500 in total penalties. The violations include a $5,000 penalty for 67 instances where the carrier allowed or required a driver to falsify records of duty status, a $1,000 penalty for not requiring a driver involved in a fatality accident to conduct a post-accident test for controlled substances or alcohol usage, a $1,000 violation for failure to retain supporting documents that would indicate compliance with the hours of service rules, and 2 $750 penalties for failures to conduct required inspections or to be able to provide paperwork proving that such inspections took place. Staff believes the $8,500 in penalties is the proper course of action to ensure compliance with the applicable motor carrier rules and regulations. And with that, staff recommends approval of this order. I am available to answer any questions you have, though.
Thank you, Mr. Latif, for that presentation. And let me first turn to my fellow commissioners to see if they have any questions of you. And I will begin with Commissioner Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, the incident with the fatality, the driver was associated with this company. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And after the fatality, how is it that he did not undergo alcohol and drug testing?
I think that they didn't have records of them doing it after part of the protocol to do that until they were investigated, and now they're aware of the protocol that they need to have the driver test afterwards after any DOT accident.
Okay, and then did that facilitate our investigation of the company?
Yes, that precipitated our investigation.
Or precipitated, yes. Thank you. My comment is, unfortunately, a life was lost, but we cannot afford to have companies such as this company, Marsal Trucking, with the substantial number of very serious infractions of the law. And I think the law is very reasonable and very basic, and they can't even do that. And so I heartily support this fine for the company and our diligence in monitoring the status of this company from here on. And again, our 2 investigators in Southwest Kansas, who again are burdened with issues of this nature time and again. So I do support this penalty.
Thank you, Commissioner Duffy. Commissioner Keen, do you have any questions for Mr. Latif?
No questions, just two comments. I join Commissioner Duffy in her in the concern she's expressed. I am grateful for the effort of our field staff and our investigators that put in a lot of time and effort on this thing and are all having all those efforts directed toward the safety of the motoring public. Thank you as well, Hassan, for your presentation. Having said that, I would move approval of the order.
I second Commissioner Keen's motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the described order in this docket. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, those in favor, please vote aye.
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 Aye. The order is approved. We now turn to our second noticed item, and this is in docket number 22 TRAM 067 PEN in the matter of the investigation of Winans Oil Inc., Dodge City, Kansas, regarding the violations of the Kansas Motor Carrier Safety Statutes, Rules, and Regulations, and the Commission's authority to impose penalties, sanctions, and/or the revocation of motor carrier authority. This is another proposed penalty order, and again, our presenter is Mr. Hassan Latif.
Thank you again. The second penalty order I have before you is the result of investigation of Winans Oil Incorporated, a common and private motor carrier that hauls liquids and gases operating out of Dodge City, Kansas. The investigation also took place as a result of an accident that the carrier was involved in. When troopers responded to the accident, the driver was cited and arrested for driving under the influence, possession of methamphetamines, and possession of a firearm by a felon. And then he was subsequently terminated by the company. During this investigation, special investigators Penny Fryback and Erica Pargas also found a number of violations, and 14 of those are alleged in this penalty order, resulting in $7,150 in total penalties. The violations resulted from not complying with certain hazardous material rules, drug and alcohol testing requirements, and a failure to produce evidence of necessary inspections and missing paperwork. The two largest fines of the 14 are a $2,000 penalty for 5 instances where the carrier allowed or required a driver to falsify record of duty status, and a $1,000 penalty for not requiring a driver involved in a fatality accident to conduct a post-accident test for controlled substances or alcohol usage. I will just comment on that. The driver was arrested and he was tested by the troopers that took him, but they're still required to get a DOT supervised test so that that can be included in the record of the driver, so that later companies can understand what is involved with his background. So even if he is arrested and tested, and we have a copy of the test from the KBI. In this case, they still are required to get a test from a DOT supervisor, a supervised tester, to be able to include that in his background and his record. Staff believes that the $7,150 in penalties is the proper course of action to ensure compliance with the applicable motor carrier rules and regulations. And with that, staff recommends approval of this order as well. And I'm available to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mr. Latif. For questions, this time I will first turn to Commissioner Keen.
No questions, Hassan. Just a very brief comment. The violations here are really incredibly serious, and I believe that the various penalties that comprise the total amount are called for. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Keen. Commissioner Duffy.
Yes, thank you. Again, two orders before us that are so troubling. And I'll just note one example for a driver on June 23rd, that Winans Oil required or permitted the driver to falsify his time card. So what does that mean? Does that mean he didn't get any sleep and was just driving, back to back, or whatever it is? But whether it was permitted or required, again, these are just basic requirements of the motoring businessmen and women in our state. And I heartily support the fine that is being issued to this company. And I offer my thanks to all of those who completed the investigation that we have here today. I
Thank
move
you.
approval of the order.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the order in the reference docket. Is there any further discussion on that motion? I would just add my complete concurrence with the comments of my fellow commissioners on both this docket and the previous. These are extremely serious circumstances, and they show the importance or the important work that our investigators do and the very difficult work that they do. So thank you to staff. With that, we will take up the motion. If there's no further discussion, those in favor, please vote aye.
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 Aye. The order is approved. Hearing no further business to come before us today, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor, please vote aye.
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 Aye, we are adjourned. Thank you all. Good to see you.
Take
Good to
care.
see you.